start. Thank you all for being here. This is not the Danny Glover panel, in case there's any confusion. So what we'll try and focus on, or what I try and focus on, is being like super specific and very practical about things. When Mike that runs StocktonCon had asked us to come up to do the presentation, he said, you know, my instinct whenever I'm in an audience at panels, which we go to a lot of panels and we'll talk about that, is always like, well, what's this person talking about? Why are they, you know, did this presentation I could do there? So this isn't meant to be anything of like, oh, expert collector, but have collected for a really long time, both comics and toys, and we'll talk about that. And we go to a lot of shows, and so we'll kind of talk about some of those things and some of the little tricks we've learned or things that have kind of helped us along the way. We will be, this will be also saved as a podcast. We have, we'll get into a little bit of that, but we have a website where we cover conventions and theme parks, really a lot of California, or really specifically we're from Southern California, so we do a lot with that. And that in terms of collecting gives us, obviously, it's nice because we can wait things out at a lot of shows. So like I'll show you kind of the things I picked up this morning and kind of like why I did it, and then why there was other things that were really tempting but I didn't. And that's because sometimes we have the luxury because we have so many shows within a small area. Definitely up here in Northern California is a much better vibe, or just much better options in terms of toy stuff. So if you're toy collectors, I love all the toy shows that you guys have up here. We have much more, I would say, in the comic and then kind of the Hollywood or quasi-Hollywood, you know, scene and stuff. And so, with that being said, we find, you know, our toy deals down there as well. But the reason we came to StocktonCon last year was because I think of all the shows we went to, we picked up more things for our collection in the area of toys than at any show we did, whether it was, you know, whatever, San Diego, Phoenix, Vegas, whatever. So we really like it for that reason. So for me, my background a little bit, I have been a toy collector and comic collector since I think I was like, I don't know, 4 or 5. Like I was the kid that kept all the cards and things like that, and I had shelves and I didn't know what a diorama was, but I'd try and make them and set them there and not want anybody to mess with them. I remember the first time I can remember being really in trouble for something. I don't know what I did, knocked over a cookie jar or something. And my mom sent me to the room, and it was the punishment, and I was just like, this is awesome. And I was doing displays and setting things up. And then an hour later, she's like, okay, you can come out. And I'm like, no, I'm good. Just I'm going to stay here and do this, you know. And so I always loved that, was always into it. I had a really kind of non-traditional upbringing in that my dad was just a bad guy, for lack to use comic book terms. He was just a villain. And so I didn't go to elementary school. And we just traveled all over the country. Later, I've learned that I think it was a lot of doing bad stuff, but at the time, we had a different story. But as a result, I kind of had to teach myself to read, so comic books are like my world. Like, you know, I'm one of those people that says, you know, it's all about, you know, if it weren't for comic books, I wouldn't be reading today, and that's at least how I feel. So having done all that, the awesome thing was seeing lots of things and collecting a lot of things. I was really into the Mego. I was born in '76, so I'm 38. Mego was a little bit before my time, but it was the thing that like was at garage sales and at swap meets and things like that. And so I love the superheroes, love the Star Trek stuff, the apes, and so always wanted to collect those. Star Wars was huge, as anybody in those times, you know, and so collecting those was big. And as time went on, we would lose all those things, and you know, my dad would go sell them or whatever. And so life for me has always been about like reacquiring things. It's always been about getting the thing that I lost at whatever point in life. And so like most collectors, there's like the dark times where you kind of turn away from collecting maybe. So in the you know, high school time, it's like, oh, I don't think I'm supposed to be collecting toys. I don't know what people are going to think. You know, if I'm trying to play basketball on the basketball team and I've got a bunch of Star Wars figures on my shelf, so let's hide those away or things like that. But that quickly kind of churned really as I graduated from high school. My wife, we met in high school, and she encouraged me in '95 to buy, if you remember, you've seen here, the orange carded new Star Wars figures that came out. And it was like, oh my gosh, like she's encouraging me to buy toys, and that just unleashed. And her and I both just started, you know, collecting toys throughout college and all that stuff. And then it's been kind of consistent since then. It's been the one thing in my life that I've always come back to, is collecting. What we do with our website is we try to bring like a fan experience to people that can't go to different shows. So we try to really cover things from that perspective and share as much of what the thing is. So whether it's on social media or our YouTube channel or things like that. So this is our 65th show actually in the last 18 months that we've been to. So we get to a lot of conventions. And again, a lot of them for us are very easy because, you know, when I tell somebody that lives in like Kansas or something, they're like, how do you know you fly? It's like, well, we haven't flown to a single convention. It's all been drives. This is the show we drive the furthest for. But, you know, we do Phoenix and Arizona and things like that. But we've gotten a good kind of feel of like the whole range of everything from like the pure like money-making con that's all just about that, and the other one that's about, you know, just a specific toy, and, you know, all these different ranges. So that being said, I think though, as we talk about things like patience with collecting, that really helps us because we are able to go to lots, and I don't think that everybody can necessarily always have that patience when you really want to get that, you know, that item or whatever it is. So for me, you know, my like real goal is to collect them all. And when I say all, like everything, like every toy ever, everything, like from preschool toys to, you know, whatever else, hot toys. But I know I'll never collect even like 1% of them, you know. And so for me though, that helps with, I guess, patience with things and not to get ripped off, because that's a really big thing to me. Is if you're going to try and collect a lot of stuff, that can go bad real quick if you allow yourself to get broken on those things. And so we try to collect anything. We collect comics and Disney stuff and autographs and Marvel, DC, and, you know, just a little bit of everything. So when we talk about collecting, I think there's like really two major types of collectors in the world today. And I think as I talk to people that are kind of trying to build their collections, is like, are you more of a fisherman or more of a hunter? In terms of the hunters are the people that are, you know, they like to get out, and part of the, like, going to Target and finding the Black Series speeder bike is part of the thing, and that's just as cool as putting it on the shelf. And then there's others that are a little bit more, they let it kind of come to them. Not that you're not searching on the internet, but that, you know, they have their saved searches, eBay, and they find great deals that way. What I like to do is try to, I mean, I just enjoy the hunt. I really do like getting out on the floor, in the stores, whatever, and looking for stuff, and that's everything to me. I would trade a good day of hunting where I pick up something that's not so amazing maybe for like the best online deal ever, just because I just love that experience of, hey, it was 8 hours of entertainment on top of I got this one little thing that was okay. You know, it's a fun way to spend the day to me. But that being said, there's a lot to be said for both ways, and so I try to integrate the fisherman's mentality though in being extremely patient and not attacking everything as maybe a hunter would. And so when I come across things that, even though I've wanted it for a while, if it's not, you know, I have that idea of what the price is I want to pay, I, you know, try to hold off and be patient with it. So in the presentation, in terms of like the nuts and bolts of collecting at cons, and just even wider than that, I really want to hit on 4 points. Is really the having a clear philosophy on collecting, like what is it that I'm going out to do. You know, I find a lot of people that start collecting something and maybe, you know, get burned out on it because of prices, or maybe get burned out on it because they can't find it, or maybe they went into it because they wanted to flip things and they wanted to really try and sell things, or, you know, things like that. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the philosophies, at least that I've tried to use or employ. The pre-con prep, and so the things we do, like the things we did before we came to StocktonCon this weekend, and I'll show you some of the stuff picked up and talk about some of the things that I'm thinking of picking up, and then following the plan at the shows, and then just repeating that. And I think that's a big part of what we try and talk about, is just the idea that you know, there'll be other opportunities, and sometimes those opportunities are a long, long time away, and sometimes they're very soon, and that's, you know, it's tough. It's just, you know, $20 more than you want to spend, but you're trying to hold out, you know, and stuff, and so I'll get into that a little bit. So collecting philosophy, just in terms of thinking for what we do and for what you do collecting. Well, actually, let me actually take a second from that and ask you guys, what are things that you guys collect, or what are some of your collecting focus areas, things that you like?
Mainly imports.
Okay.
A lot of the Power Ranger stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, some Hot Toys just got into that.
Yeah.
So that's expensive.
That's a slippery slope. I have one, the Hulk is the one I have, and now it's like the Groot and Rocket Raccoon are very tempting, and then you're like, oh.
Get the set, it comes with the
yes,
exclusive.
yeah. It's like, where does this end? And yeah, no, that's a good topic there. And that's an area, you know, the sideshow, premium format, things like that, those are the things that to me are so tempting, and it's just like, but it's a very slow trickle into my collection over the littler stuff. What about for you?
Mostly just convention exclusives.
Okay, cool.
So like like I've been to Comic-Con in San Diego twice.
Right.
Trump all that stuff.
Right.
And, pretty much anything I see that just kind of catches my interest.
Yeah.
Like the Hot Toys you guys were saying, I
Right.
saw the Groot, and
Right.
Rocket,
Yeah,
right? That's
beautiful.
pretty cool.
Right.
I think down the road they're supposed to be making a Star-Lord one too.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's up already
Yeah.
on pre-order.
Is he?
Yeah.
That one also
Him,
looks just,
Drax and Gamora.
Yeah.
just different stuff like that. Just
Right.
everything that kind of catches my interest.
That's like to sum up the way I collect, that's probably mimics most of what I am, is it's just like, in the stuff I'll show you in a minute, it's just like, yep, that's something I want, and that's something I can't afford, but I want, down the line or whatever. What about you?
We just kind of started collecting the
Oh.
Funko Pops.
Oh, yeah, those are getting big, yeah.
Very slippery slope.
Right, yeah, they make so many, yeah.
Yeah, and Harley Quinn stuff.
Oh, okay, cool, very cool. Yeah, that actually fits as well, just because that's the way you probably feel about the Funko Pops and this giant, how many do I collect and where does it stop? That's how I feel with everything, because it is like, there's almost nothing on that floor that I don't want, It's like there's almost nothing that I don't want. So it's interesting when I listen to, there's some podcasts I really like, different toy collecting ones, and I like the Star Wars Collector's Archive, which is all focused on vintage Star Wars things, and it's like, these people are so specific. It's like, I'm a Chewbacca collector. That's what I collect, and I collect all these card variants of it, and I can't really, though, get into that mindset, because there's just so many things. If you ask me, like, who's your favorite superhero? It's like, well, I have a Green Lantern tattoo, but I don't even know if necessarily Hal Jordan's my favorite Green Lantern, or, it's just like so many interests, so I can empathize with that feeling. Of Funko Pop is in a massive area to collect in right now. So, as I look at collecting, I think a lot about just the mentality is, am I buying for now or buying for later? Because I'll be honest, to me, collecting is also about insurance for the future. And so I don't want to say that I'm not collecting because that's my retirement plan. That's not the case at all. But when I'm from a little kid on, I remember being 6 or 7 and drawing this is what the pegs would look like at the toy store I would own one day. Like, I'd have my Battlestar Galactica figures here, and I would have my Star Trek, and things like that. And so I don't know if I would ever run a toy shop or an online toy thing, but I do like the idea of trying to find things that I think will increase in value. And if ever a horrible thing happens where I need emergency funds, or just maybe to supplement retirement, there's that. But I don't want to make it like the reason I buy something. I don't want to make it the reason I don't open a toy that I want to open, or things like that too. Value-based versus emotional-based, and I think that can be a tough thing sometimes. The other things is, we do a lot with the little Disney Vinylmation figures too now, and we're like, do these really, this could very well be a bubble that just bursts and is just like worthless, and we got, the thing that got us into it, Carmel pulled a Super Chaser from the Alice in Wonderland series, and we're like, oh my gosh, it's worth $200, and it's like, let's go get more of these things, and then we have like 100 of these things, and it's like, but we try to really look at it, it's like, no, let's get them because they're fun, and if we get these cool things that might be worth more down the line, that's cool, but let's talk about it as entertainment. But that can become a big one, I think, when you're out on the floor, or even at the Target, is I haven't bought the Black Series speeder bike yet, because I'm gambling, and I'm collecting all those Black Series 6-inch, I really love them, but I'm kind of gambling that I think there might be a sale that I can get it for 30 or 35 instead of 40 or things like that,
Are they prevalent where you live at?
No, I'm seeing I think I've seen 2 total. I saw one at a Kmart and one at a Toys R Us. Actually, and there was a third. A friend had texted me and said, oh, I found one for me, or I found 2, I found one for me, do you want it? And I'm like, and sometimes, I can get burned with that, obviously, because then all of a sudden it's like I can only find it on the secondary market for $80, and I'm like, what did I do, But again, because I'm trying to collect so much stuff that it's like I gotta draw a line somewhere, and which leads into that completionism. To me, completionism is a really tough thing to overcome, and I know a lot of people that have that mentality of like, I gotta have them all. If I like the Guardians Hot Toys, I need all the Guardians Hot Toys. It'll be incomplete, if it's missing that. And I think that becomes a real individual kind of thing. Something like the Funkos, it's like, that would be like you wouldn't even be able to probably find yourself in your house because they just be stacked so high and everything. So I'm really big on partialism, if that's even a term. I hear a lot of people talk about completionism. I don't really hear partialism, but meaning that I just really try to look at what is cool, what's the thing that I gotta have, and maybe it builds out from that. So the Funko Pops, it's like, I have never been so whooped on a toy connected to a movie as the toys related to Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know why in all these years, but even like I've always loved Star Wars, but for whatever reason, Guardians of the Galaxy really captured me about 3 or 4 months ago, and I was like, I need everything. And now that it's like, now the Hot Toys are like, well, maybe I don't need everything. Maybe I need most of it, you know. But the Funko Pops were one of the first things I found, and it's like, okay, I need Star-Lord for sure, you know, I need Groot for sure. I think we got Star-Lord, Rocket, and Groot, and then it's like, oh, okay, and then we got, and now it's like, okay, well, we gotta get Drax and Gamora, and now we got the team, and then, okay, there's the Peter Quill without the mask, we gotta get that, you know, yeah. So, you know, I guess there are times that I kind of get into that completionism more. There's some things like I would love to own a complete set of Star Wars vintage card figures, but I just don't know that that's ever going to be in the cards, you know. So I feel like I'm just plucking away, you know, like a marathon runner. I'm just trying to get through like 1 mile, and if I get to 1 mile, we'll talk about 2 miles down the line. But a lot of these things, obviously, like Star Wars stuff, especially with Episode 7 coming, are just getting more expensive now, and you know, that just may never be in the cards for me. And so then that kind of long game versus short game, because I think it's a really cool thing as you're collecting to just think about, like, so where does all this stuff go someday? Like, does it go to, am I going to have kids someday and pass it on to them? Is it going to be in my casket with me buried? You know, is it going to be sold when I need it? What is the long game here? And you know, we really try to stay away from any kind of short game because, you know, we'll try and help friends out, especially things like convention exclusives and stuff. You know, at San Diego, we're able to get Jabba, we'll get extra Jabbas to try and, you know, get whatever, Infinity Gauntlets or stuff like that. Or we'll try and keep a few. And, you know, last year we kept one of the Black Series Carbonite Boba Fett, you know, sets. And it's like, you know what, let's hold on to this. And then we'll move it in January or February if money's a little tight, and now it's a question of like, well, we can't go to Amazing Comic-Con Las Vegas unless we get another couple $100. Okay, well, let's move it now, you know, type of a thing. And so kind of trying to use the hobby to pay for the hobby, you know, because that's the thing too, is you obviously don't want to end up with a ton of credit card debt, and, you know, and then in a bad situation where the $20 deal is actually costing you $120 because of interest rate and things like that. So what we try to do before going into shows is like I keep in my phone like a ton of different lists of like, here's my Star Wars figures that I'm looking for, here's my, you know, DC collectibles. Man, that's another one that I've kind of been a completionist, those new DC collectibles figures. I know not everyone loves the new 52 stuff, but for whatever reason those figures have really caught my attention, so I've got my list of which ones I'm waiting out and, you know, which ones I've got and things like that. But you know, having that list going for it, because I think a big thing to me when you're on the floor, especially when you're in the secondary market, is like hesitation. Again, just like hunting, hesitation can really kill. And a dealer, you know, I'm by nature introverted. The best way to get me not to buy from your table as a vendor is to start talking to me. If you start talking to me and, you know, hey, will you swing deals and have, like, I'm not good at that. And some people are very good at that. Carmel, my wife's much better at that, and a lot of times she'll go and do the talking for me, and I'm like, I'll stand over here, this is what I want to pay. We find actually, and I don't know if there's any, like, we have no study on this or anything, but we find that she consistently gets better prices than I do with people, and so I wonder, you know, hey, is there a female advantage there that they're like, you know, or whatever? Have you experienced that?
There's a female advantage, and there's when a dealer thinks that you're naive,
Yes.
there's a huge advantage. Because if you ask, oh, I want that specific Masters of the Universe figure, oh,
Yeah.
this is a real one, okay.
Right.
Yeah, no,
Right.
It is.
It's interesting because we used to think, oh, they'll try and take advantage of her, you know, because they'll be like, oh, you don't know what this thing, but that's not been the case at all. And she knows her stuff quite well and stuff too. So I think, you know, we'll set up our plan or whatever. But you know, having that, because if I'm fumbling around at the thing and looking at my list and I've got 200 figures, this is the 201st I need or whatever, it's like it's much more likely that they're gonna be able to take advantage of me. And then having that prioritization, you know, is just having that, you know, as these lists do get so unwieldy, so like my Star Wars carded ones, I have them in a list, I think I need like 60 some figures or whatever. But like I have them in a list of like, if I had all the money in the world and I could buy one figure, this is what it would be. And, you know, all the way down to General Madine or whatever. And so, you know, that helps, I think, as well, keeping everything organized. And then, you know, having that list, as I said, just easily accessible and discreet. And so, you know, again, in terms of just the more you look like, you know, what you're doing a lot of times at these booths, a lot more times that they drive harder bargains or things like that. I think establishing a clear budget for collecting is really important because, again, you just don't want to make it something that's going to cause problems in your household for whatever the reason is just, okay, all of a sudden I can't, get this, I can't go out to dinner this weekend in the movies to see Guardians of the Galaxy because I bought the Guardians of the Galaxy hot toy, or whatever it is become kind of a prisoner to your own home. And so I'm really big on just that never going over budget. So like for us, we'll establish our budget, and then we know within it we kind of have this padding of like, okay, this is the goal amount, and we might go $100 more. But like if we have to go to the ATM to get that $100, we're going to drive to a B of A ATM. We're going to make it hard on ourselves. We're not going to get it on the convention floor where they're going to, we're going to make it really hard on ourselves to get the money so that hopefully we'll think about it more and decide like, do we really need this or do we want it, A tough thing, and I'll kind of get to that in a second, is just for us, the way we really approach it, we find the best in terms of, at the end of a convention, having a good set of items, is spending a lot of the budget early when you first open, and then spending the rest of the budget after. And so there's like this big window in the middle where we don't spend quite as much. It's like Sunday deals and opening deals, kind of a thing, and so that can be a little tough sometimes. What's the focus of this collecting hunt? I really like the idea of going to a show and having a clear, like, this is kind of the goal of this type of show. So for example, this one last year, what I found, and this was just based on last year, was we weren't really getting the comic book deals that we could get other places, but we were getting really good toy deals, specifically vintage toys. And so last year, that's what we found. This year, who knows, but we came into it thinking we're gonna focus a little more vintage toy, not so much new toys, and we'll see kind of where the weekend goes from there. And opposite the theme really works very well. So the toy shows buying comics, the He-Man show buying Star Wars, whatever it is we find, is my initial thought on a lot of those would be like, well, now it's going to be rarer there, so like only one booth's going to have He-Man stuff at this comic show or whatever. They're going to be escalated in price, but I've actually found the opposite in most of our experiences, is they usually are the ones where there are deals, because they're just like, yeah, these comic book people don't want any He-Man figures, let's just try and move them, and trying to get into the psychology of buying that. So with covering so many conventions, I'll get feedback like, when we drove up to StocktonCon last year, we got something like, why are you going to drive to StocktonCon? What you go to San Diego, why would you go to San Diego? It's like, and that's just, to me, a mentality of just not really getting why we go to conventions, which the reason we go is to get, I say if there's one thing I really collect, it's experiences. Like even more so than any of this, I just love collecting unique experiences. And so, StocktonCon offers a lot of unique experiences in terms of how the show's run, the focus on charity. We really love this show a lot. And we also find, on top of that, which is icing on the cake and amazing, is we find a lot of great toy deals. And so that's why, we're here as well. Now, if we tried to, rationalize it and put in a checkbook and say, well, how much do we pay on gas, and all this stuff. I'm sure after we do the hotel rooms, it's like, well, yeah, you didn't really get great deals on it, but obviously we get this weekend experience and to do all those things. But we came here ready to kind of shop vintage, and that was going to be our focus. As of the pass through this morning, real quick, that's still my feeling. That's pretty much, I think, everything I bought this morning is in that vein. And we'll see where the weekend goes, from there. But there's some cool things. There's, some stuff I've got on my list that I'm going to kind of keep an eye on. So also before the con, making sure that our tech is ready to go. The phone to me, is the most valuable thing in the world now with collecting. So just keep all my lists in there, and I'm able to, when we go to the comic bins, I email her the updated list, and we take one side, I take one side, and we're able to kind of to break up the battle that way. eBay, I am so big on, I don't want to ever pay more, even though I want the hunt, I don't want to ever pay more for the fun of the hunt than if I could get it on eBay. And I know eBay, like, that killed, I was part of that. I'm old enough where, like, that I saw the difference. I remember my uncle gave me a Carlton Fisk rookie card, and when he gave it to me for like my 18th birthday, like when I would go to the guides and go to the shows, it was like a $120 card. And then eBay hit big, and it was worth like $10, And so eBay just kind of leveled the playing field for all of us, that we can get these things. And convention exclusives, I always watch that market, how things ebb and flow, and at what periods things go up and down and all that. But at the end of the day, when I'm standing there at the booth, when I was standing at the booth this morning buying stuff, it's like, okay, I hate to say to a brick and mortar location, place where they're playing the table, that I expect to get online prices, because that's not fair. But at the same time, when I am trying to collect so much, I gotta look out for myself and hope that I can get those prices, or otherwise I won't be collecting very long at all. I'll be out of that hobby pretty quick. The whole everything. But I mean, I can't imagine leaving the house without an external charger anymore because I just use the phone so much for different things. And then social media. Social media is huge. Like at San Diego this year, I mean, that Hasbro booth is just horrific, you know. And Carmel was able to get into that. We've never messed with it preview night. You know, we do all these tip videos on how to do exclusives at San Diego and stuff, and we always say like, avoid it preview night because it's such madness. And somehow she was able to get in there, so it's awesome. But immediately, like different friends we've made from social media, we're talking like, hey, do you need? Okay, so she's in. You know, okay, you need the Creo. You know, you want the Dinobots. What do you want? And you know, obviously we want to take care of our own little part first, but maybe we can help out and make sure that we're all in good shape. The other thing about social media, I find that you're just able to connect with people in other markets, and you can set up like trades. Like I have a guy in Texas and a guy in North Carolina, and their convention scene is very different from here. And we're always like trading things, not like in a trying to get advanced, but like friends. Like we've never met in person, but we're friends because of Twitter. And it's always like, oh, I'd love to get that autograph, and that guy's never where you are, or you know, vice versa. You know, and so something like East of West in the comic, it's like. Dragata was out here, and I was able to get the artist signed on these East of West, and then I shipped them out to him, and Jonathan Hickman was at his thing, and he got them signed, and now we both kind of got taken care of. So I really love, you know, the use of Twitter in particular, Facebook as well, Instagram, but especially Twitter in terms of being able to connect with people and try and just help improve experiences, I guess. And you know, maybe if the Black Series, you know, whatever doesn't hit by me, then maybe it's hitting all over the place in New York, and maybe we can set something up. Again, not in trying to take advantage of each other and like, hey, let's set up a trade that way, but just in like friends helping out friends, or collectors helping out collectors. Definitely, you know, if you guys are ever in a boat, you can always, at the end we have all my contact info. Oh, and on the card there and stuff, but I mean, you can always hit me up too, and we can, you know, try and trade things or help each other out or things like that too, because it's like, if I'm at StocktonCon and the My Little Pony variant cover thing is something somebody wants, like why wouldn't I try and pick it up and help out a friend, you know, and maybe they'll be able to do something for me down the line, even if it's not right there. So at the convention, we try to be there. Now for us, it's kind of changed over the years because now that we cover conventions and do things like that, it's like we're trying to like, okay, let's take pictures and let's tweet this, let's put up our YouTube video with this, like, but I want to get my deals, you know, or at San Diego, I want to get into this line, you know, and so it's tough to kind of draw that line between them, and it's something we said after San Diego, when we did, Carmel and I did our wrap-up podcast, and we're like, we feel like every year at San Diego we have a better time than the year before. But at the same time, like this last year, we're really struggling with, like, 2 years ago, Carmel and I didn't talk to anybody besides ourselves. Like, it was just Carmel and I. We didn't do anything social, and we were in the room by 8 o'clock at night. And now it's like we've made friends because we do cover things, and there's just little meeting things now. It's like, hey, let's go hang out and talk. And then it's like, well, that's cool, but now we're up till 11, and I got to be in line for Hasbro at 3 in the morning or whatever, you know. And it's like, so we're still trying to, like, figure out how to do well with the website, be good friends, and do our collecting, you know, and how do we balance all that? But obviously getting there early is a big thing. Trying to be on the floor is a big thing. I think it's tough when you first hit the floor because, you know, you don't want to spend all your money right away, but at the same time there's going to be certain deals. Maybe because a vendor doesn't know what they have, you know, maybe because they just want to get a good start on the day. I mean, it's tough, and you're like, do I wait on this or do you not? But you know, I try to do whatever the show is, San Diego exempt and maybe WonderCon exempt because they're so big. But outside of that, even Phoenix, which is almost big as WonderCon now, we try to do a fast, like, zigzag through the entire floor as quick as possible just to get a feel and just be like, wow, comics are really expensive here, or, you know, wow, there's like 10 booths with this vintage whatever thing I've been chasing or whatever, and just to kind of get a sense of what the floor is. And then we buy the things we love, the things that really stand out, and we make a list for those things that we like, and it's like, okay, we'll come back, you know. And so to me it's a really simple line. So like this morning, the things that I love that I bought, first is a Zorro old vintage figure. It's a lot of nostalgia for me. It's a messed up card. It's a very messed up card. It was $20. which was about what I thought it should be on eBay prices, probably a little bit more shipping, probably 25 or something. But I didn't know that it would be there deep in Oregon. I have not seen this. I've been to 65 shows. This is the first time I've seen it. So I know that, it's not a super rare item, but it's not a popular item either. So that's why, probably a lot of the dealers have them, but they're just, languishing away in some storage container or something, they'll bring it. So I was like, you know what? I got to get this, and even though, and that really, you can see, it's not a very nice card at all, and that's part of how, to be able to collect a lot for me, a lot of it is also of being okay with taking subpar, things, is I would love, I'm only like 10 issues away from having a complete run of the Avengers, the original 1963 comic. And obviously the ones I'm far away from are like number 1, number 2, the most expensive ones. But I'm like, I just need the copy. Like, it can have rips, it can have tears. I just need. And if ever someday I win the lottery, I'll go through and replace with nice copies of everything, get them CGC'd or whatever, But my feeling is, to me, the value is that kind of emotional attachment to having it, on the shelf, whatever it is, of kind of having that. Another banged up carded item. This was only $10 this morning, and I was like, okay, that's good. It doesn't show up that often on eBay. Doctor Who 87 Cybermen doesn't show up very often on eBay. It shows up, and when it does, it's usually in better shape than that, but also like $30 or so. And I'm like, okay, this is a cool thing. It looks really super cheesy and funny, and for $10, that's an instant buy type of thing. At San Diego, which I usually, because when we go to conventions, I usually don't buy much from them, because if we really wanted it, hopefully we got it while we were there. But I was not able. One of the goals on my list of things is to get Brian Michael Bendis to sign something. And actually, if any of you are interested in that, it's just, they have more of them. They had a couple of them, and it's only $5. And I was like, this is cool. I love Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't have Disney Infinities, but I think I would love that too if I ever played it. I don't know, at least with the Marvel characters. And Brian Michael Bendis, that doesn't replace me standing in line someday and getting him to sign something, but it is like a placeholder for $5. I was like, okay, this is a cool thing. And then old puzzles, which I don't collect puzzles specifically, but these are old enough and cheesy enough that I had to have them at like $5, $8. It seemed un-American not to buy Spider-Man Saving the Boy Scouts, so I had to get that. And so, at $5, and so it was what, 20, 30, 40, so it was $48 this morning was kind of my initial run through. And in picking up those items, not one of those items, if you asked me before this show, though, would I say, yeah, I'm looking for an old vintage Spider-Man puzzle, or, this cheesy Spider-Man, they were all things that caught my attention, as you said, when I was on the floor, and all of a sudden I didn't realize that I needed this my entire life, and that's what I love about the floor, and I love about collecting, is all of a sudden you find things, you're like, oh my gosh, how did I go through my entire life and never own a puzzle of Spider-Man Saving the Boy Scouts before the waterfall? How did I get by all this time without it? And so, that's a big fun part, I think, about the floors, and that's why I do encourage people, if they're at all able to go to a show, within that hour's drive of checking out, because you always find fun things that you just didn't know you even were looking for until that time. Now, on my list, I have a few things on the list. Some of the vintage Star Wars figures I saw that were just a little bit too high. There was the Marvel Secret Wars figures. There's a foreign carded Kang the Conqueror, but it's kind of, the card's kind of separating, and it's a little iffy, and the guy was talking to me too much, and I was like, made me uncomfortable. So I'm like, all right, I'll come back maybe on Sunday. If it's still here, maybe it'll be less chatty, or maybe the price will be down, or maybe Carmel will go and help me out or something. But I was feeling pressured, and I don't like feeling pressured. It's like, we talk about it all the time with buying cars. Like, the last thing I want to do is somebody be in my face trying to push me to buy their thing. I'm much more likely to buy it if you don't talk to me at all. So, using the tech at the convention stand, I used all these this morning, obviously making sure my phone starts stuff, but just checking eBay. I wanted to check them before I purchased any of these things. Even at, $5, I figure, like, yeah, shipping, there's no way that's going to be less. But I just wanted to know, that I wasn't missing something here that, sometimes you find, especially things like convention exclusives, that you find, like, it's supposed to have this extra piece, maybe, and they stripped it down from this piece, and now you didn't know that it was there, and you thought you got a great deal, and now you get home, and you're like, oh, it's an okay deal, but it's not a great deal anymore. and communicating via, text, social media. The bigger conventions definitely, it helps a lot to be like, hey, on row 17, this is what's happening or whatever. But even during the floor, I mean, Carmel and I use text quite a bit. It's like, hey, I found this thing. Is that something that we really want to get or not? Getting social and knowing your dealers, and that's the really hard part for me. Because as I said, by doing this panel, as Mike asked, will you do we're going to do a 2-day show next year. Will you do a panel on collecting at conventions? And I said, yeah, but I don't put in panel proposals. It's not something I like to do. I like to help people. I like to communicate and help. Hopefully everybody has a better time at the shows, conventions, and theme parks and stuff that we cover. But it's not in my nature to walk up and be like, hey, I'm Shawn, what are you up to type of thing. And that being said, though, obviously it does pay to be social, and so you know how that goes, and to have dealers that will look out for you a little bit and save certain things, whether it is convention exclusives or variant covers or variant Funko Pops or whatever, if they know. And so we have a lot of dealers that we found because we go to a number of conventions that we know, even though it says 25, it's always 20, that type of relationship. And that's kind of when it is at its best, I think. Or if something, maybe Diamond has an exclusive thing coming out, we can ask them, hey, can you keep one of those for us? And it'll be at a reasonable price and not escalated to some sort of crazy price. But knowing those dealers, I mean, again, up here, it's funny because that's always the thing, every time we're up here and I'm looking at all the flyers with the San Jose Toy Show and all, I mean, we're going to have the Pasadena Toy Show that's coming now, but that's really, as far as Carmel and I know right now in planning our 2015 conventions, that Pasadena one that's going to come in February is the only toy convention we'll go to the entire year. Everything else is either comic, pop culture, and it has some other toy stuff maybe, and sometimes we go to one at the Shrine in LA, that a lot of people are like, oh, why do you go there? It's such a, run-down place, and it's falling apart and all that. That's our best toy. That's our best place to buy anything from a hot toy at a reasonable price, something that's not obviously sold through Sideshow itself, or, this oddball vintage stuff and things like that. And so knowing the dealers at these places has helped us quite a bit with that. To haggle or not to haggle, it's I use the picture of the Java because I just feel like that's what it is. Every event, not that I'm trying to paint, I mean, I've sold toys at shows myself, but I feel like every vendor is kind of like Java in a way, trying to take advantage of me or something like that. And so I'm just I'm instantly turned off from the whole idea. But that being said, obviously if you have those social skills, and some people, that's a big part of the hunt, is they enjoy that. We have a friend who's amazing at haggling, and he loves it. That's his favorite part of it. He doesn't even want the stuff, he just wants to haggle, and argue about stuff and things, and that's awesome, and I wish it was a skill I had, but I don't have it. And so for me, I just have to be even more disciplined about what I'm going to do, because I know I'm not going to take, when I see 35, I'm guessing they mean 30, but I'm probably not even going to push that, and so I'll ask Carmel to push it for me, or I'll just be like, hey, I'm going to go with this, and we'll see what happens as we go along. But it's an awesome skill. Or if you have a friend, that you can access as well, that can be great too. Taking what the con floor gives you and then working with it, is I think, like I said, is when you do that initial run through the floor, what we find helps us a lot is just being open to changing and saying, okay, well, we came here thinking we were going to buy X, and that's just not going to work. It's too overpriced, so let's go with Y. It's a very kind of zen thing. But like I said, it's going into shows, if we're going to go to PowerCon, when we went to PowerCon last year, it's okay, this is a He-Man, She-Ra, Thundercats show. We're going to it with the plan of maybe not buying any He-Man, She-Ra, or Thundercats. Hopefully we can. But we're going into it thinking, I bet there's going to be some vendors there that have superhero stuff that no one else is going to want to buy besides us. And even if not on Saturday, maybe on Sunday when they're about to wrap up and they want to kind of make this a profitable trip, all of a sudden they're like, hey, yeah, let's sell these at a little bit of a reduced rate. But and it's funny on Twitter a lot of times because people will be like, wait, you bought what at what? Because it's like, hey, look at all these cool, whatever Marvel superheroes that we bought at, whatever, Gallifrey, Doctor Who convention. They're like, do they even sell that there? But, as pop culture, obviously we're all a part of this zeitgeist of, all the stuff that was not popular in the 80s or 90s or whatever is now the most popular, As a result of it, whether we're at a show that's very specific to Doctor Who, He-Man, whatever, it's all starting to bleed over. It's all really, really starting to bleed over. So if there are any shows that you're ever looking at that you're like, well, I kind of like X, but I don't know if I want a whole weekend of X, I can promise you that in almost all the cases, you know, I think it's funny, like Gallifrey, every year at Gallifrey, this, you know, Doctor Who centered convention, they have a meetup with the Young Justice DC guys and stuff, and they, you know, it's always like, whatever, I don't know what the Doctor Who Young Justice DC connection really is. I know one of the artists, they kind of overlap some, but he always makes sure to have this, and it's like, you know, Greg Weisman and these people will be there having just a kind of an informal, let's hang out in the bar type of talk, and here, I'll give you guys some free prints and stuff. And it's like, it's a really fun thing. Not many people are interested in there, you know, but there is this little group of us that are interested in that type of stuff. And so as you're looking, you know, at those shows, I can definitely tell you, at least right now in all the shows we go to, there are a lot of overlap there. After the con then, what we always try to do is once we wrap up at a show is we have our convention notes. So for every show, we take notes just on the show in general of like, was our budget enough? You know, was the hotel okay? Like just general stuff. Did we need to remember to bring, you know, our own canned and bottled drinks because it's going to be just too ridiculous at that particular place or whatever. But we also have our collecting notes of, you know, this is a good show next year to target. You know, maybe we didn't get that thing at San Diego, we really want it. You know what, we found Kamikaze is just far enough out of San Diego that the price has dropped a little, but it's not quite Christmas push yet, and you know, maybe that's a good time to buy it. So we'll take notes like that. And then inventory becomes a big thing. It's just like, okay, what is, let's, you know, like, man, when I don't update the comic list sometimes, then all of a sudden I find I bought like a second thing, and it's not because I wanted to, but because I just did, and that really upsets me with myself because, you know, that's, we'll talk about sometimes just kind of jokingly is it's like if you have too much stuff that you don't know what you have, maybe you shouldn't be collecting it anymore. Well, we're way past that point. Like we've got a huge inventory list, but we have like one room that's just, you know, nothing but plastic containers, and then our entire first floor is this. Like this is our entire first floor is sarcophaguses, and you know, and there's not a shelf that doesn't have dioramas and action figures and all kinds of random stuff. And so for ourselves, we have to kind of, you know, where, like, there's literally nowhere to put these 5 things, so, or 6 things, so it's like, where do they go, you know, and that's become a big thing too with like prints and stuff. Like we used to buy prints all the time and cool artist things to hang on the wall, posters, and now that pop culture in terms of comics has gotten so big, it feels like there's like 50 Guardians of the Galaxy posters I want, you know, and it's like I don't have anywhere to put even one of them, so, you know, what do we do with it and where does it all go? But displaying, I think, is a big thing because it's like if I just get these and then throw them in a plastic container, you know, that's not any fun really. And so that's where I have to kind of take inventory and say, well, how do I know? So some these do have to go on display, and we'll kind of circle things out of display, like things that are on display and things that go off our display. It's kind of funny because we don't really ever have visitors at our house except for our pet sitters, but we're always like changing the display and putting new things out and stuff like that. And then planning the next hunt, you know, is where's that next place that we can kind of pick this back up and go after the things that we are looking for and stuff like that. So in general, like following along with the stuff, or, you know, if it's ever just trying to connect on finding things or stuff like that, I mean, always happy to help. You know, like San Diego, one of the things did is, you know, like with the WB bags, everybody gets these WB bags, like, so I used to have a thing like where I retweet them, and it lets people kind of connect and trade the bags and things like that. But we've got our website where we try to keep all of this stuff as kind of a home base. We have our Parks and Cons podcast. We talk about everything from collecting toys to, you know, we'll be talking about StocktonCon, Not Scary Farm, big Halloween fans, all that type of stuff, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and all of that. So you can kind of find us there, and always happy to help in whatever way at least that we can help. So we are at about that window where they're going to start moving and stuff, but are there any questions yet or anything, any topics you want to talk about? Because we could probably push like another couple minutes if you do.
My question is, you kind of touched on it, but like storage.
Mm-hmm.
Because,
Yes.
yeah, we do have
Where
a
does it go?
very small house.
I get you, yeah. Yeah, you know, like in, like the Funko Pops, what I love about those is because they are so small that you can really make a nice display on a shelf or on the top of the TV or, you know, things like that. I think what we found in that, you know, there's a big, do you open them or do you leave them in the box?
No, we leave them
in the box, yeah. And see, that's a big thing too, and like, it's funny because I don't think I ever opened anything until maybe like 5 years ago. And then all of a sudden 5 years ago, I'm like, wow, these look way better. Wow, like I didn't even know what people were talking about when they talk about articulation. It's like, you can go mint on card, you know? And then it's like, you know, now the market has changed too. There's a lot of figures that are kind of made to be a collectible or whatever, you know? And so now it's like, there's no way I'm gonna leave the Hot Toys Hulk in the box. Or, you know, we actually have opened most of our Funko Pops as well. And so my point there is just economize space. But then you're left with the question too of like, what do I do with these boxes? Do I throw them? So we have like a spare room that has just open boxes. And we're like, okay, well, which of these do we really need? What we do use a lot though, in terms of stuff that's not on display, is we'll use like drawers in, you know, like let's say we have a coffee table with drawers. They're all filled up with things. We have a little, you know, a little table like that. We'll put a sheet, like a Star Wars sheet over it so it looks themed or whatever, and dip under it a couple blue containers or things like that. You definitely can free up a lot of space by opening the stuff, but obviously the question, the nice thing with the Pops, like a lot of those you can kind of open and display and they'll go back nicely, you know. And then I think just being creative with the space too, like we have in our kitchen, you know, obviously we don't want anything too close to like where there's gonna be like, you know, the sun hitting it or the, you know, the grease from the whatever. But there are lots of spaces in there where it's like you open up this cupboard and it's like, oh, there's like a whole Lego set up here where the dishes should be, you know. And so if we have people over, we'll maybe have that open, or if we just want to enjoy it ourselves. Combining things, like we built a giant, like it's about as long as this, like a Lego town, because it was just like, I had like, here's this Lego ship here, and here's this Lego set here, and it's like, you know what, they all need to merge. For some reason, it doesn't work in my head to let the Star Wars Lego be in the set with all the Marvel and DC, I don't know why, but like, that's just wrong. But everybody else can be mixed up, so I mixed those up, even some of the Creo type stuff and things like that. So I think, you know, it's definitely about having some decent containers. We do, you know, just those, whatever, those standard blue totes from Target that are pretty cheap. We use those and we try to make sure that they're, you know, padded in such a way that they're not going to get all tweaked over time. And then it's about just, you know, putting them out and then kind of changing the space. But I think if you're really short on space too, like we are as well, is, you know, it's fun to kind of alternate the displays, you know, and that way it's like you're enjoying things, and you know, it's almost like seasons or whatever. It's like, okay, now it's, you know, Funko, you know, HBO series season or whatever, let's go with those, you know, or now it's Funko Adventure Time season, let's go with those or whatever, and you kind of alternate those. And then I think it also is a way, because that's the thing with a lot of the toys too, like once you get your, you know, Pop or your Hot Toy or whatever, and it's awesome and you open it and you got it, but now what, like 6 months from now after you've seen it every day, how does it still maintain its excitement or value to you? And a good way is like once you put stuff away and you reopen, it's kind of Christmas morning all over again. It's like, okay, pulling out new stuff, and you can kind of just keep things cycling around. And that's something, that's really where we're at now, is this stuff is going to go on display, but something else has to go away. And my hope is when we come back to those other things, that those will be kind of exciting again in a different way. So, all right, it looks like they're giving us the signal that we are wrapping up. So obviously if there's any questions, I can hang out and we'll talk and stuff like that, but we'll wrap so that they can go ahead and get their display and stuff. And thank you very, very much. I know convention time, like to me convention time is more valuable a lot of times than real time, because you only have X amount of hours here today. So I'm super thankful that you spent an hour of that little bit of time you had here with us. So thank you very, very much. So, thank you.